You're the smartest guy I ever met. And you're too stupid to see.
The Sukalangli will never be real.
Brilliant. Absolutely incredible. Pinnacle of the show. Seriously though, Ozymandias is a fantastic start to one of the best wrap-ups to a TV show of all time. I think. Now, I've watched like 5 TV shows in my life, so I'm making a pretty broad assumption here, but I haven't heard an extraordinary number of people claiming the contrary. Spoiler alert, the contrast between the first cook and the shootout, phenomenal. Walt begging for Hank's life, superb. That being said, I don't think it's perfect. Down to the last minute detail. I was a little disappointed by the way that Walt revealed that he let Jane die. Throughout the series, it seemed like it'd be this huge conflict at some point, especially because of The Fly, which Rian Johnson also directed. Come on, Rian Johnson, you alley-ooped yourself, missed the dunk. But I guess by including Brock's poisoning, they kind of buried the lead. I also found it a little unrealistic that Jack's gang left Walter a barrel of money. Also, Walter getting out of the desert was a little bit slow. Aside from that, flawless. People also mentioned Crawl Space as potentially the best episode, which again is fantastic, but it has Skylar and Ted in it. Ugh. But Ted gets hurt, yay. But they don't do a really good job of showing how Brock gets poisoned, which to be fair is more of a problem with the following episodes as opposed to this one. Really, I'm just grasping at straws here because, again, this episode is extraordinary. But it's not my favorite. That honor goes to Half Measure, Season 3, Episode 12, which has the best monologue, some of the most intense scenes, and maybe the most bombastic and gratifying ending to any episode of Breaking Bad. First, the negatives. Skylar arguing for her car wash, which I always thought was one of the weakest plot lines in the series. Skylar versus Saul on where to launder Walt's money. It never really seemed like it carried a bigger purpose aside from the happy wife, happy life angle, but at least Skylar and Walt ended up being semi-agreeable, as opposed to being cold and petty like usual. Also, this. Ugh. Half Measure, more like half chub. At least Hank was quick about it. Truly 2 men cut from the same cloth, him and I. Now, the positives. Boom, new lighting. That's right, I'm in Mexico now. Anyways, I love this episode because it basically tells an entire story within its 50-minute runtime, as opposed to some other episodes which carry narrative arcs throughout multiple episodes, and it also represents a dramatic shift for Walter. At the beginning, we see Jesse watching the 2 guys who killed Combo and used the kid, and it's pretty clear that he's plotting something out, and whatever he's plotting is going to be the focal point of this episode. We then see Walt as the family man, content and caring, helping Junior drive, and successfully bargaining his way into more family time. Next is Walt actually accepting Jesse's request for a social outing, which is always nice to see, unlike some other times. Then their conversation, which is juxtaposed beautifully with the cottagecore vibes and the smooth jazz playing in the background. It's very interesting because Jesse talks about murder while Walt tries to talk him out of it, but it results in us seeing Walt as this cruel, emotionless bastard because he shows apathy for Combo, for the kid, and simply says,
"This achieves nothing. It accomplishes nothing."
As if that's the only reason why it shouldn't be considered. Then Walter says this.
"You are not a murderer. I'm not, and you are not."
Which gives us almost immediate ironic payoff with Walt, who's already a murderer, killing the 2 guys at the end, then forcing Jesse to kill Gale in the next episode, which, by the way, is also absolutely fantastic. Next is Hank being an asshole to Junior, which, and I know this writing isn't part of this episode, but the way Hank is acting here plays in line with it, and I just want to go on a quick tangent and fuse over it for a second. A turning point for both Walt and Hank's characters is when Gale Boetticher is revealed to be Heisenberg. Hank seems down about this, calls Heisenberg a schmuck, then Walter, drunk in his pride as well as actually drunk, indicates that maybe the real Heisenberg is still out there. This reinvigorates Hank and gets him back on the case, which eventually leads to him finding out about Walter, and this character trait of Hank's, him not being truly happy unless he was on the hunt for Heisenberg, plays out here as Hank, bedridden and crippled, feels useless without his fix, and is projecting that onto everyone else. In any case, afterwards, Walt discusses feeble potential options to Saul to prevent Jesse from becoming a murderer, while Jesse convinces his hooker friend, and also the best damn character in the entire series, to perform the homicidal task. Then we have, in my opinion, nothing less than the best damn scene in the entire show. Now, I'm gonna be honest here, and you can call me a stupid watcher if you want, but I had no idea why Mike was paying Walter a visit here. But it was another example of Walt's business responsibilities intruding upon his family life, literally knocking on the door of his family home while he's cuddling with his daughter. Now, as Mike goes on, I'm hooked by this story. It's intense and it's brutal, but I still have no idea where it's going. And then it hits me like a thermite blast, and I'm like, holy shit. He wants Jesse dead. It was the perfect lead up, this fabulous, gripping story, and then the slow revelation as to the nature of the visit. Just like much of the rest of the show, you know, the slow revelations as to the true nature of Walter and Gus, and Jonathan Banks just plays it absolutely perfectly. Walter, put your dick away, Walter.
I'm not having sex with you right now, Walter.
What I absolutely love about that speech is that when I initially finished the series, I was like, that speech really wasn't that consequential to the grand scheme of the show. But as some YouTube comments enlightened me on, it was. Just not in the way that I or Mike thought it would be. What causes Mike's downfall and Walt's rise to ultimate power is Walt's consequent willingness to take full measures, and Mike's unwillingness to. In the next episode, Mike allows Walt to call Pinkman instead of just killing him, resulting in Walt taking the full measure and having Jesse kill Gale. In season 5, Mike refuses to kill Lydia after she puts a hit out on him, resulting in her giving the names of his guys to Walt and allowing Walt to put a hit out on all of them to protect his name. And of course, Mike works with Walt instead of cutting ties with him, which ultimately results in his death. The ultimate full measure, which Mike never thought Walt capable of stooping to. In any case, Walt initially refuses the full measure. He snitches to Gus and has Jesse brought in before he can pull off the plot. Giancarlo Esposito does some of his most intimidating acting here, and yet Jesse stands up to him, putting his values over his own safety, which I see as one of the turning points that leads Gus into trusting Jesse over Walt. Gus tells the two men,
No more children.
which some people see as intentionally ambiguous, with Gus perhaps hoping that the men would just kill the child so that he has an excuse to kill Jesse, but I think that Gus just assumed that any associates of his would never stoop to the level of harming children. Any associates of his. On their way back, Walt basically chastises Jesse, like a child.
Jesse, your actions, they affect other people.
Which is definitely a very important lesson for Jesse to learn. Thank you, Walt. I mean, you never know. Jesse's actions could have resulted in the crashing of 2 passenger planes in Albuquerque airspace. And then, of course, we have this scene, Schrader getting his ASAC hanked. Moving on. Finally, we reach the climax. The episode's climax, not Hank's, thankfully. Did I say thankfully? I meant regrettably. Jesse finds out that these guys killed the kid to keep him silent, and obviously he sees red and goes out for revenge, as well his girlfriend was related to the kid. Walt sees the news of this happening and immediately knows what Jesse is going to do, instantly heading out the door. The development Walt has undertaken throughout this episode, and of course the series, is perfectly portrayed here with more juxtaposition. As Walt is forced to leave his perfect evening, one of the best nights he's had with his family in a very long time, and by the way, yop, I knew that one too, thank you Dead Poet Society, in order to step farther into the protection of his business and his other family and Jesse, farther than he's ever gone before, and actually become a murderer. And not a murder like Crazy 8, where he was clearly struggling, he was conflicted in his emotions and broken afterwards, but a stone-cold shot to the head with no hesitation and no fear. He truly did become the danger. Thanks for watching, guys. Consider becoming a patron. No, I'm kidding. The tension for this final scene is hugely palpable. Obviously, Jesse's outnumbered. He's never killed someone before the way these guys almost certainly have. We know that he's not afraid to die. We're all thinking, is this where he finally dies? And then Walter comes through in a huge way, in a vastly gratifying moment that I think in the grand scheme of the show is one of Walter's largest redemptive moments. And in what is also one of the last times, if not the last time, that Walter really has Jesse's back.
Run.
Bravo, Adam Bernstein, Sam Catlin, Peter Gold. No, seriously, bravo. As a final point, I'd like to discuss that throughout, we see what becomes a theme throughout the latter stages of the show, and that Jesse is the only one who thinks emotionally, who takes his feelings into account when justifying his actions and decisions. And we see the rest, Walt, Mike, Gus, all stone-cold logical planners, dismiss this empathy as the spontaneity of a druggie and as a weakness. Eventually, Mike and Gus start to turn against Walt, I think, when they realize that Walter can also think emotionally, but based more on emotions of jealousy and pride as opposed to principles, and start to rely more on Jesse, the sun flip in their attitude being, I thought, one of the weaker writing aspects of the show, but likely due to their belief that they can manipulate Jesse's emotional volatility to better serve their purpose, a goal which, of course, Walt plays an Uno reverse card on. Jesse isn't a perfect angel by any means. I would point to him trying to sell meth to recovering addicts as evidence of this, but he's certainly more relatable and easier to empathize with than pretty much every other main character on this show. In any case, masterpiece episode. My personal favorite. If you think otherwise, shut the fuck up and let me die in peace. By all means, I would love to see discourse on personal favorite episodes in the comments. Just try not to act like your opposing commenter just killed a kid they were forcing to work for them and start a Mexican standoff. I've run over enough people in my car today. I don't want to have to come save you too. Connor Hagerman out.